Muy buenos días.
A very good morning, one and all. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby declare open the 17th meeting of the 13th UPR session. This morning we will deal with the adoption of the draft UPR reports of the Philippines and Algeria. We will begin with the report of the Philippines. The troika for this report consists of the representatives of Hungary, Qatar and Uganda. Without further ado, I give the floor to Ms. Nur Ibrahim Al-Sada from the Permanent Mission of Qatar to the United Nations at Geneva, who on behalf of the whole troika will introduce the report on the UPR of the Philippines. You have the floor, madam.
It's a great honor and a privilege to present on behalf of the Troika composed of Uganda, Hungary and Qatar the draft report of the Working Group UPR of the Philippines, distributed under the reference A/HRC/WG.6/13/L.10. During the State Under Review, held on the 29th of May, 64 delegations delivered their statements and 8 states sent advance questions. As a result, 64 states was addressed 88 recommendations. The Troika would like to thank the delegation of the Philippines, led by Her Excellency Ms. Laila M. De Lima, Secretary Minister, Department of Justice, as well as other delegations for their constructive and active engagement in the process and the preparation of this report have been accepted, while 35 will be examined and the response provided not later than the 21st session of the Human Rights Council in September 2012. We would like to mention that on paragraph 129.23, Japan would like to change the word though to through. The recommendation will read as follows: ensure the effective enforcement of domestic legislation and further strive to eradicate human trafficking through cooperation with the international community, including by accepting a visit by the Special Rapporteur. The Troika would also like to address its thanks to the Secretariat for its active support during the entire process. With this in mind, the Troika submits this report to the working group for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Al-Sada, for the presentation of the Universal Periodic Review Report of the Philippines, and my thanks also for the work of the Troika. Before adopting the draft report, I would like to remind all delegations that you have 2 weeks to make editorial changes related to your own statements in the summaries section of the report. The section summarizing the interactive dialogue. All such editorial changes to the summary should be transmitted to the Troika through the Secretariat at the usual address. That said, should there be any comments on the recommendations section, and by this I mean your own recommendations, then now is the time to make those comments. It seems that nobody wishes to take the floor to make a comment on the recommendations section. And that being the case, I now propose that the working group adopts the draft report on the Universal Periodic Review of the Philippines. The report is adopted as orally amended. His Excellency Mr. Teofilos Pilando, Executive Secretary of the Office of the Executive Secretary of the Philippines, for any final remarks he may wish to make on this UPR process. You have the floor, sir.
Her Excellency Laura Dupuy Lacer, President of the Human Rights Council, Excellencies and representatives of the member countries of the Human Rights Council, members of the permanent missions to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Again, let me convey the warmest greetings of His Excellency Benigno Simeon Aquino III, President of the Republic of the Philippines, to this august body. Please allow me to extend our felicitations and deep appreciation to the Secretariat and to the Troika, composed of Hungary, Qatar, and Uganda. 3 days ago, the Philippines went through 3 hours of enriching dialogue with members of the Council. With openness and sincerity, the Philippines presented its ongoing strategic directions, policies, and programs that advance the human rights of its citizens in the last 4 years, since the first cycle of this review. These same strategic directions, policies, and programs shall continue to define the state's its steadfast commitment to the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of human rights, not only within our country, but in the community of nations as well. The Philippines deeply appreciates the honest observations and constructive recommendations made by our fellow member states in this Council. I am pleased to announce today that the Philippines has accepted 53 out of the 88 recommendations we received from the 64 member states. I also wish to convey to you that out of the 53 recommendations the Philippines has accepted, 8 of them already are being implemented, like the ratification of the Rome Statute and the OPCAT, or are being implemented, such as those relating to the fight against trafficking in persons and the promotion and protection of the rights of women, children, migrant workers, and seafarers. As for the remaining recommendations, we will bring them back with us to Manila for further consultations and review, and with a view of coming up with the responses in time for the September session of the Human Rights Council. The Philippines is confident that the country can make good on these commitments. The Philippines has a new government that is transformational. The Philippine leadership desires no less than the progress of the Filipino people, along a strategy hinged on eradicating corruption and poverty, the most glaring violations of our right development. The Philippine government has opened its doors wider than ever for consultation and participation to better respond to the needs of the people. It shall be persistent in its desire that the people reap the benefits, rewards of good government, that is, a much better life in progress, and freedoms to be fully lived and enjoyed by the present and the succeeding generation. As the Philippines commits itself to work seriously on all the relevant recommendations, it pleases me to inform the Council that weeks before this review, the Presidential Human Rights Committee under the Office of the President of the Philippines has begun discussions with our independent National Human Rights Institution, the Commission on Human Rights, for the immediate setting up of a tripartite UPR Commitments and Recommendations Monitoring Group. In the spirit of continued engagement with civil society organizations, this monitoring group shall involve a broader participation of these organizations to ensure that the Philippines lives up to the expectations of the body. The Philippines is of the strong belief that much will be achieved if the stakeholders come out, sit down, and work together to promote, protect, and fulfill human rights. Madam President, we welcome this body's adoption of its report on the Philippines. We thank you, Madam President, as well as everyone in the Council for warmly welcoming us. Thank you.
Muchísimas.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Pilando, and I'd also like to thank your whole delegation for your participation in this, your second UPR review process. I would also like to thank you for the spirit of openness and the commitment which has nurtured the discussion and the dialogue, and the desire expressed by the government of the Philippines to ensure the well-being of all of its society. And we are looking forward to your responses to additional recommendations by the September session. That brings us to the end of the review of the Philippines. We will proceed in a few minutes with the adoption of the report of the review of Algeria. And thank you once again, Philippines.